Everyone, it's I, Wacky Anime with a Fear, here to present you with What If Issei Was Betrayed and Gained the Betrayal System? Part 2. Let's go ahead and get into it. Currently, Issei Hyodo is looking at his system. Currently looking through the, tabs. After going to his stats and checking that he has unbearably bad stats, but the system reassures him his stats are slightly higher than the average human. Doesn't really make him feel that much better, though, considering the system also told him very panicking news that he already accepted a date with Rainier, and it's next week. God damn it, how could I be so stupid? He thought, going for the first female that comes to mind and asks, without even thinking it's shady. Classic Issei, he says in his head, while also asking his system. So, the plan is to unlock Drake, I guess. First, right? While the system says you no longer have Drake, while Issei says with his mouth open and his eyes completely wide, he says, "You're kidding me, right? Drake was with me in the past. I know he was. Wouldn't he be alive now?" While the system says, well, that would be the case, but he wasn't with you exactly. He was ripped out of you. And he was also shattered just before the system arrived to you and gave you the option. He died. So Issei ended up starting to whimper a little bit, saying, is there a way to bring him back? He screams out, while the system says there is a way to bring him back. He's in the shop, actually, in the system tab. The only thing is you haven't unlocked the shop yet until you're level 10, and you need 1 million betrayal points. Which betrayal points are essentially gacha points, in a sense, okay? You can also get him from the gacha, which I suggest doing that instead. Getting all those betrayal points will take you multiple years that you do not have, obviously. And you need to get stronger if you're going to fight Rainier. After all, my creator wouldn't want you to end up dying too easily. After all, the creator who made me is known as one of the betrayed gods. He ended up making it to where I would go to the one person who feels the most betrayed, who's lost everything, and who will rise above the ashes to destroy them all. At least that's what he said. So, can you go ahead and spin the gacha? He immediately presses the gacha tab and asks, what do you mean, your creator, the betrayed god, who is it? While the system says, I'm sorry, but you're not at a far enough level to be able to get the clearance to even remotely speak much about him. But let me just tell you that the system will give you missions and tasks, and the rewards will differ. You might even get information about it. Might even get information about the future itself, the parts that you haven't seen. And you can do many things differently now. Don't waste the time. And don't waste the power of the system. Go ahead and spin. After all, it's your first quest. A quest screen pops up saying to spin the gacha 12 times. It says to draw 12 times specifically in the gacha. Immediately, Issei ends up saying, alright. He clicks on the gacha tab. Right when he does, he presses the 12 draw, losing 10,000 points in the process. Immediately, everything around him turns pitch black, and his eyesight ends up being clouded by a black mist. And then he opens his eyes, he closes his eyes for a few seconds and opens them, seeing that he's surrounded by an entire hurricane full of billions and billions of separate cards. Immediately, he asks the system, what is this place? The system responds as, this is the draw section. You have to pick 12 cards out of the tornado. You can do it in any way you wish. You can even jump into the tornado itself. You may get damaged, but also the more damage you take, the more you raise your defense stat. After all, no pain, no gain, right? Immediately, Issei says, so I can do it any way I want, like he suggested. Alright, I think I might actually jump in. Well, the system says, I was just kidding, don't actually do, before he jumps in already. Immediately the system says, oh no, I'm gonna lose a host, aren't I? The cards are accelerating in the hurricane super fast. They're actually lunging into Issei's body. They're going directly into his skin. Some of them are piercing into his skin, some of them are giving him cuts. He has over 1,000 cuts and he just entered into the tornado. Immediately, his arm has over 50 cuts. His legs have over 100. And his chest has over a few hundred. Like over 400. He's getting thousands and thousands more cuts. And immediately, Issei feels some of the cards getting launched into his skin. He feels one directly into his back. Right into his back, being driven deep. He immediately thinks this is almost as deep as the betrayal of Rias and her barrage of little bitches, or also known as pawns. Immediately feeling all of the cards lodging to his skin. He feels 7 separate cards lodge into his skin. One of them ended up lodging into his back. One ended up lodging into his leg. One ended up lodging into his neck, the side of his neck, while the rest of them ended up lodging in different areas on Issei, like his kneecap, per se. Issei felt all of them lodge in, immediately falling to the ground after the hurricane finally stopped. Seeing that there's 12 cards pierced into his body, he immediately pulls out all the cards, feeling it painful, very painfully, getting out of his skin, and seeing red blood dripping off of each card. Immediately, when he touches the cards and pulls them all out, they all end up going into his inventory, or into his body, immediately popping up a screen showing exactly what he got. Immediately, Issei ended up going to his inventory. Right when he ended up seeing the surroundings fading directly back into his room, he went into his inventory and saw that he has a certain weapon. It said Chaos Blades. He immediately pulls them out of his inventory and sees 2 blades that look like they were dipped in hellfire itself. And immediately Issei ends up asking, so what happened with this? Before noticing that he also had a skill when he looked at his notification tabs. He saw that he has 3 skills from the draw. One skill is known as Backstab. The second skill is known as the Hidden Sword Under the Smile. The Hidden Dagger Under the Smile. While the third one merely just says, never thought I would get a skill like that, he says. As the third one says, it's multi-gear. Allows the user to hold multiple sacred gears. Immediately Issei says, that's quite interesting, as the blades in his actual hands start to literally melt into his skin. He feels an immense amount of pain as the blades burst in fire, and Issei feels pain as they start coursing through his body. The chains that were beneath the blade start wrapping into Issei's skin, and he feels a burning sensation around his arms as the blades start burning more and more. As the system pops up and says, Issei, try not to die. These count as a sacred gear in your world. They're from a different world and were wielded by someone who was very strong, someone that was very powerful and very vengeful and hateful, and was betrayed just like you. Don't forget the anger, the hatred, the despair. That's what will get you through. I hope you make it through, since you're my only partner I have currently. As the system disappears and Issei's grunting his teeth, he's biting down his teeth together so hard that they're starting to crack. He feels his eyes bleeding. He feels his skin literally disintegrating and reintegrating, and his bones literally grinding itself to dust before rearranging itself into different bone matter. He also feels as if his brain and his body and blood vessels are on fire. His blood is boiling. All of it's pouring out of his body and going back into his body and rearranging. His body, bones, and everything is restructuring. And Issei has to stay awake or he will die. Issei thinks about the hatred he feels towards Rias and her group. He thinks about the time where he sacrificed his arm so that he could go against Riser to save Reese from her arranged marriage. And how they were on a griffin and she ended up flying down with him. And that's when they first ended up kissing. And that was a lie as well. That kiss was a lie. That moment was a lie. Those feelings were lies. He thinks in his head, and his anger returns, groaning through the pain while continuously thinking, me giving up my wife multiple times just to save her, and this is how she betrays me. He thinks over and over towards the times where he sacrificed his life, the times where he saved Asya, the times where he went to literal Juggernaut Drive just to save, just because of the anger he felt when she died, or when he thought she died. No, he wishes that they all died. And the time where he saved Kiba from the experiment, from, well, getting lost in his hatred from the experiments he was in the past, lost his hatred from the sword experiment. All of the things that he's done for that group, and Konako accepting her actual Nico side. This made him boil. His blood felt like it was boiling more than it already is, which is burning intensely. Immediately, Issei stays awake while thinking these emotions, and his eyes are bloodshot red. Right when the pain finally dies down, Issei gets upwards, right out of the bed that he was in when he fell down, and all the pain started. Right when he gets up and looks at his body, he notices something different. He notices that his arms are a lot stronger, a lot thicker. His body is a lot more muscular. He looks down and sees he has an 8-pack, and he goes towards the mirror that's in his room and sees that his face has changed. It's much more sharper. His eyes are much more fierce, more wild by nature, and more filled with vengeance than ever before. His eyes are a piercing red, and he swore that he saw them glow a little bit as he thought about Rias again. After all, his eyes are the same red as her hair, which made him very uncomfortable, and he thought he saw little flames when that was happening. But he could be wrong. He said status, and right when he said that, the status screen popped up. He immediately looked and saw his strength was at 87, his speed was at 60, his actual endurance was at 82, his luck was at -10. It was at -100, but he's guessing that the Sacred Gear did this, and it may have enhanced his body. Immediately looking downwards more, it showed where his actual mana was. His mana reserves are now at apparently 60, which was a surprise, because Issei sucks completely at any type of mana or magic. But it's a welcome one, as he looks through his status and goes to where it shows his race, his name, and all that. It shows his name still as Issei Hyodo, but when he goes to race, it shows human/god. Apparently it made him part god. And Issei immediately thinks, so what else did I get? He immediately goes into his inventory. Right when he does, he sees many other things. He sees this outfit that says, the Assassin's Crown is what it's called. The outfit itself says Assassin's Crown Guard, but it just says Assassin's Crown in the description. It was immediately worn by the King of Assassins' right guard, who ended up betraying him in the end, considering that, well, the Assassin's Guard was stronger than the Assassin King at the time. He ended up getting betrayed and backstabbed by his king and only friend. Immediately, Issei felt quite bad looking into the story of it when he uses his observe skill that he found out. Immediately looking at the rest of the items and seeing one thing that literally goes out in specific. He sees the Vanishing Dragon. He sees the Divide Gear. Immediately pressing his hand into the inventory slot and pulling it out of his inventory, it immediately clenches into his hand, directly into his left hand is where the divided gear goes, and it immediately merges into his hand. Issei thought he was going to feel pain, like he did with the blades, but he felt nothing. And then he noticed that the gauntlet was on his left hand, and it started to speak. "Hello there. It seems that you're my partner. So, who are you exactly?" Issei Hyodo said, "My name is Issei Hyodo, and I guess you're Albion, correct? After all, you were Volley's partner." While Albion says, "Who's Volley exactly? Is Volley the wielder of the boosted gear by chance?" While Issei says, "No, he's the wielder of you. You're a copy, to be exact. A carbon copy. But no one says that the fakes can't outdo the original. So, I guess you're my partner for now," he says. While the dragon itself, Albion, was saying, "So I'm a fake, huh? Well, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be the strongest, I guess. I'll beat that fake, and I'll beat Drake's ass too. After all, I'm the strongest," he says. While Issei says, "So, aside from that, why do you have such a hate boner for Drake?" While immediately the white dragon itself, Albion, says, "I don't have a hate boner for anyone." While Issei says, "Yeah, sure, Drake is stronger than you," and immediately Albion starts shouting that he's not, while Issei starts to chuckle a little bit, before thinking, "Now, what do I do exactly? How do I master your powers? You're a lot different than the boosted gear, correct?" Well, Albion said, "Yes. Yes, I am. While he focuses on boosting your strength, I focus on dividing it. You have to mostly focus on battle strategy. Sure, being strong is really, really useful, but the stronger you get, the more divides I can do. But that also means that I won't be able to make you as strong as the boosted gear. I can only make it to where my ability can divide people's power. So essentially, be careful when you use me. It's a lot more skillful than using Drake, that's for sure. Considering anyone with Drake could literally become a literal tank, or a literal, juggernaut, essentially. They can immediately go out of control a lot easier too, considering Drake's fatality rate of his, well, past users is almost as bad as mine. The only difference is I actually keep mine in line. He can't keep his in line at all, as they suffered worse fates than anyone else can know. Immediately, Issei says, "So, Albion, I should mainly focus on body training or unlocking your balance breaker, and also focus more on tactics that I can use on enemies, correct?" And Albion said, "Correct." As Issei starts to think, "Oh, now I gotta go to Kyo. Oh well, might as well." He immediately puts on his Kyo outfit, his Kyo uniform, and goes all the way out of his house, ignoring his mother and father downstairs, considering they ignored him his entire life. Right when he walks all the way towards Kyo, right when he does, he immediately thinks, "What should I do exactly?" And that's where I'm going to stop. What if Issei was betrayed and gained the betrayal system? Part